Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Warriors of Athena, which is an upcoming game by Joe McCullough of Frostgrave and Silver Bayonet fame, among others. Osprey Games were very, very kind to send these books over to me early so we can have a little preview chat about what's inside. We're not going to be going through the quest book because that would give away, funnily enough, the quests. But today we're going to be focusing on this one, which I can talk to you about a lot more, which is the Heroes book. This contains the rules, it contains the stats for your heroes, how to create a warband, what you'll need, and we'll go through all of this and we'll have a look at the book at the same time. So first things first, unlike Frostgrave, this can be played in 3 ways, as written on the back here. So either solo, cooperatively, or with one player taking on the role of Oracle, or in other words, with one player taking on the role of Dungeon Master. I haven't actually played a game of this yet, but I will be doing that in the next few weeks, and we'll revisit to see how it all plays, and we might even do a battle report once the game's out. As you can see, first off, lovely artwork, very, very nice, more like a graphic novel in style. As you can see here, this has got some really fantastic dramatic artwork. As you can probably guess from the name, Warriors of Athena, this is set in ancient Greece, and you would be up against enemies of myth and legend from that period in history. So we've got the introduction here, a little what you need to play section. So you'll need miniatures, you will need dice, playing cards. If you've played the Silver Bayonet, you'll understand how that works. If not, it's essentially you draw a number of standard playing cards from a deck, and they correspond to sort of random events which can occur during the course of your scenario or quest. You've got the hero sheet, so essentially the wizard sheet from Frostgrave, but for your heroes, and of course the table and terrain. Now, unlike Frostgrave, where it was supposed to be very terrain heavy and very built up, this is a lot more wide open spaces and trees and, you know, more of an outdoorsy thing. So it explains a lot of that here. Then we would come to creating a hero. Again, some beautiful artwork there. Very nice artwork, and good to see a return of the games being played as well. I assume that these are North Star miniatures by the look of them. And with any luck, we'll be able to do a sprue review of some of those in the future. So when you create your hero, it says, before you start your quest for immortality, you must first create a hero. This hero is your protagonist and essentially represents you on the tabletop. Although your hero will have several allies and companions during its quests, it is their journey you mainly chart from adventure to adventure. Your hero, as it turns out, is a demigod. So you have parentage tables where you roll to find out who your parents are. Once you've created your hero, it will have a corresponding gift depending on what you've rolled. And then we have weaknesses, which are also inherited from parents, whether that be that you're particularly greedy, whether you're cursed, you might even just be a real fitty, who knows, a fatty, or very, very ugly. So there's a number of different bits and bobs there as far as the weaknesses go, which I think would add a very interesting dynamic to each of your games, especially if you're co-op, because each of you would have to would be afflicted with one or the other of those rolled. Then you've got your stats, so move, fight, shoot, armor, willpower, and health. That's all standard. Heroic abilities and skills, so your hero won't just be a bog standard guy with a sword or a spear or anything like that. You've also got some heroic abilities. Again, very much like the curses, it could be, you know, that you're particularly good at poems or singing. Conversely, you could be a hunter, So that would be an interesting perk. We've then also got your recruitment points, which you would use to hire people, and then you've got your weapons and armor, very similar to Frostgrave. Nice little Cthulhu guy there, he looks pretty cool. Level and experience, fairly standard. Select your name, and you're ready to go. Again, this artwork is just beautiful. It's so dynamic and so fun to look at. So there's a lot going on. Gives you a real feel of the ancient Greek setting as well. There's your heroic abilities table. So we move into companions. Companions will be joining you on your quest, as I'm sure you would imagine. They each have their own weaknesses and strengths. You can have animal companions, which is quite nice. Controlled creatures, very much again like Frostgrave. Temporary companions who join you not for the entire time, but sort of dip in and out. Mercenaries, which is your standard soldier. And then you can choose your companion list, which you would then recruit for certain points. So we've got archers, axemen, barbarians. There's some animals like a boar or a hound. Centaurs, that could be pretty fun to kit bash as well. So centaurs, we have a standard fighter, a guardsman with large two-handed weapons, warhounds, hoplites. They were the sort of heavy armoured shield and spear guys, I believe. Effectively like a Templar or a knight in Frostgrave. Hunters, javelineers, a lion. Interesting. A raptor. Now don't get too excited, that's not the dinosaur. I would imagine that's a bird of prey. Recruits, savages, even snakes, songbirds. That could be an interesting one. Slingers, songmaster. A thief. And my favourite, a weasel. Now, I assume that the weasel would just be a tiny little miniature and not something like this. I'm assuming that this is supposed to be some other creature. Again, more fantastic artwork. You've got your basic rules explaining the turns, phases of the turn, how to activate your miniatures and in what order, group activation and movement. It explains obstructions and climbing and rough ground, moving off the table, how to force combat, moving into combat, jumping and swimming. Not enough crabs in fantasy war games, is there really? Falling, yeah, swimming, falling. So this is all very Frostgravey stuff. But I guess if if Joe has worked out a system that works and it works nicely and people find it easy to learn, if it works, don't change it too much. So melee combat, your formations of combat for group combat, shooting, and using your heroic abilities. Heroic abilities, as we sort of touched on at the beginning, would be unique abilities to your hero, and that can be used. I don't know whether this can be used every turn, but we'll see that when we go through the actual playthrough. And then we've got clue markers and treasure tokens. So this I am particularly interested in. I'm hoping that raising the dead is something that you can actually employ in your warband, just to get a bit of a one-up over your opponent. There's a section here on the evil creature actions, along with a priority chart explaining if the creature is in combat, if there's line of sight, and does the scenario include a target point and how the evil creatures move, how to end the scenario, and then playing with an oracle. So this is where your DM or GM section comes in, which I think is the way that I would prefer to play. I'll do a solo game and we'll see how that goes, but I think playing with somebody rather than doing a co-op, unless you've got 3 or 4 people who all want to get in on the game, playing with an oracle is probably your best way of doing it. That way it's more of a traditional good versus evil one-on-one feel. I mean, some of this artwork is just superb. These miniatures are great. I don't know whether these are specifically for Warriors of Athena or whether these are sort of cannibalized from other kits, but really like the look of them. You know, I'm a sucker for undead, so we'll just see. It's worth noting that you don't have to buy the North Star figures for this. Anything that would work, you know, kit bash your own miniatures or use a different line of miniatures. As long as it works and they're all the same scale, there shouldn't be an issue with playing with others. So I'm loving this artwork. More undead there. Fantastic stuff. Right. And then we're into the campaigns. This is where everything that has been explained gets you up to this point. So, injury and death, how to gain your experience, how to level up your character, permanent injuries, all that sort of stuff. Potions, so again, very similar to Frostgrave with your potions. Special weapons and missile weapons, and your armors as well. Magic items. Okay, so talismans are magic items, but there is also a section for magic items. So that makes sense. Okay, so there's a few different pieces there. Lots of mentions of Greek goddesses and gods. Hephaestus, Apollo, Hecate. Sacrifices and offerings to the gods. Another interesting mechanic. We'll see how that works in real life when we actually go do the game. And then a little bit about the quest book, which, as I say, I can't go into in great detail because that would give away some of the story. So overall, I'm really looking forward to playing these. I wish that I could go into the quest book and explain some of the scenarios, but I am sworn to secrecy. So we will leave that for the time being, but I think this is going to be a really, really interesting game system. Stay tuned if you want to see more Warriors of Athena stuff. Like and subscribe, hit the bell button for new videos, and we'll see you next time.